Off here with some 20mm tubing. I'm going to connect up with a 9.5mm blow tube to the end of this. Little corner marbling trick, I love that, saves time. Alright, got that nice and even on the connection, and I'm going to tear off about a 5-inch piece of this tubing. So I'm going to pre-warm this a bit, nice soft flame, get it all warmed up. Heating up about half of the tube, just getting a nice light glow on it, so it can accept the color. Make a nice small fluffy flame, and find some stringer here. I'm going to use some black stringer to start with. This is jet black. You can use either jet black for your black lines, or you can use cobalt 6, and they both come out pretty good. So I'm going to heat up the area where I want to put the line. And then I heat up the stringer just a tad, and I attach the stringer, push it down, center it, and then slowly let it fall around the tube and melt on as it falls around. You really have to keep in mind gravity really affects which way the stringer falls, so you want to try and keep this perfectly level, and if you see it tilting one side to the other, you just kind of tilt it back so that it goes straight. And just work it all the way around. I found this is the best way to get a really nice even black line. You get it all the way around, and then you touch it like this on the marber pad. Then grab something and just knock off the extra. You have to make sure you push it down though while it's still hot. Otherwise you could knock the whole ring right off. So. And I just kind of adjusted that a bit, and now I'm going to marb this in. I'm going to grab another piece of stringer. Actually, nope, that one's got a mark on it. Grab a new piece. I'm really picky about which parts of a stringer I use to do this. It needs to be the right diameter and just right. I don't know, it's something you learn over time is stringer size. Everyone has their own stringer size they use for these. I've become comfortable using thinner and thinner ones as I went. When I started, I used thicker lines to get the hang of them and then gradually reduced size. that on, make it straight. Curl it around. Push it down. Knock off the extra. And then marve it in. I'm going to be adding color to this, and sometimes they cool off down there, and then when you go back to reheat, a little section of stringer will just pop right off the tube. So marving them in keeps that from happening. All right, next thing I'm going to do here is put some dots. These are my guide dots. And I do 4 dots, top, bottom, side, side. And they're really small, just big enough to be markers. 1, 2, 3. That one was a little bit too big. 3, okay, and then one more. How straight you make these dots right now determines how straight all of your lines are going to be. So you want to try and make this 4 corners as straight as you can. If you're having trouble keeping your hand steady, you can rest it against your marver pad or against your torch. There's one dot. Get the other one a bit warm and follow that line down. 2 dots. And having your tube warm is really important so it can accept the color as you draw the stringer on. And I'm going to play a game of connect the dots here. I'm going to start at this dot here and go diagonally 1 dot over to the bottom. So I get both dots kind of glowing a little bit. And I kind of imagine the line that I'm going to follow, and then I just start going for it. And I keep an eye on that other point. Then you reach it and you stop. So I've got 1 diagonal line. I'm going to go ahead and do 1 more. Connect the dots here. Starting here, going over. Fingers got a little warm. All right, do a little reheat. Remember to keep it a little bit warm so that it can accept the color. And now I'm going to add 4 more and then 4 more. And then I might add another 4 and another 4 after that. So it's a lot of lines. Say you lay a line and you don't like quite where it's laying, and it's got a little ripple in it. You can actually heat up that line a little bit and push it over with your tungsten. The tungsten pick is going to be one of your most prized tools when it comes to doing these Fillacellos. And reheat. It's good to do, a little reheat between each 4 lines or each 2. And there we go. It goes.
That's sick.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I couldn't even see my flame. So this is my last line on the black. There we go. Now I'm just gonna use a nice soft heat. Gently just kind of heat this whole grid up and just give it a little bit of a paddle. I'm not gonna melt it in. I'm gonna leave them rough. There we go. So there's the grid. What I'm going to do with the colors is I'm going to start with yellow at the bottom and then fade to red, then to purple, and then to a blue, then to green at the top. And that will be where the termination is on the green. So I've got a nice small little flame here, and I'm just following the contour here of the black line. That gives me, that's why I don't melt in the lines, so I have a guideline to push the color up against. Give this a nice reheat. All right, that's all the yellow I'm going to use. I'm going to orange. I may go back and add a little more yellow later, but probably not. I think it's good. Nice preheat.
And the coloring that this color design layout, this is something that you're coming up with just off the cuff, right?
Yep.
It's
totally freestyle.
Yeah.
What I've found is whatever you do, you just repeat it on all four sides, and you're fine. So purple is next. Purple there. Let's see, where else should I do purple? So I got my purple.
So it looks like you use the longer trapezoidal ones for transitions, like red to purple, and then the smaller diamonds you're using solid colors, so purple in the smaller diamonds, the red to purple fade.
I'm just kind of going for it. It's working. You explained it more than I even know what I'm doing.
That's good.
Yeah. That's awesome though. I love that. Okay, a little bit more of this, I believe this is peacock is what I'm using here. I know I've got plenty, don't worry about it. I'm just gonna lay a little bit more. Oh, these lines here. Hopefully it doesn't look weird. Great, done with the aqua. Now I just got green and white. And then I will be done with playing the color. Still got to flip it, and that takes another 20, 30 minutes. All of my sections of stringer, I like to draw with them about the length of a long pencil. Or really, about a little less, like 10 inches. Yeah. It's easier to manage. If you have a big long thing sticking off behind you, they always break. Still a little mark in there. Really cracked bad. It is, it's a meditation. When I'm, alone in the shop doing these, it's just me and the torch. All right, so now I gotta melt this guy in. Turn up my oxygen a little bit. You gotta be really careful not to boil the color. Funny as it is, if you boil the color on the outside, the inside will show bubbles. So turn my oxygen up and use a nice cool flame. This keeps it from bubbling and takes longer, but everything with Fillacellos takes longer. So now I'm going to actually just kind of turn up the heat just a tad, kind of work in the outer part though, not too much. And I actually work in the outer part all the time, and I'm letting it fall back on itself. This is how I condense them. And I spin both directions. You can see it condensing. Then I give it a little puff. Just like so. Now I'm gonna go right here. And I thicken this clear on the end right here. I kind of thicken it up. Make sure you spin both directions so you don't twist up the color. It's very important. You spend hours doing this. The last thing you would want to do is twist this pattern up. And I'm going to grab a 6mm rod here. I'm going to be recondensing all this clear on the back side. Got my 6mm connected. All right, I'm going to recondense this. Blow that out a little bit. I was able to kind of look inside there and get a sneak peek at what has been happening on the inside this whole time. The outside always looks kind of messy, and then the inside usually looks just amazing. I get that nice squat shaped bubble on the back side, and now I got to do the termination. This is another part where I'm going to want to run a cooler flame so I don't bubble the color as I do the termination. You see a lot of times people get bubbles on the inside. That's because they ran just a little bit too hot of a flame, and you end up getting the color really thin on the end, and that's when it bubbles, when it's thin. I'm going to tear some of this clear off, twisting both directions. Alright, so now the clear is pretty small. And what I do at this point is I make a little flat spot on my 6mm. Just like so. Try to make sure that it's straight. I'm heating up this end. A lot of oxygen in the flame because this is where it bubbles if you turn up your flame too much. And keeping it rotating pretty fast, that also prevents bubbles. You grab it and pull straight out. This is where it bubbles right here. So I'm being really soft, working out there. You got to make sure you terminate enough off the end to get rid of the black ring that we started with, the guideline. Here it is. Now we have to be very careful melting in this termination. I just sit way out here. White and green are both bubbly colors. I should have maybe laid these colors in the opposite way, and I could have, but crayons are bubbly as well, so I guess I couldn't have done that on retrospect. But I'm going to be able to prevent bubbles. Once you get this worked down enough, the bubbles won't happen as easily on the very tip of this. I'd suggest if you're trying your first or second one to try just using blue colors like aqua, peacock, and stay away from white at first because it'll bubble on you. And then just get it down with those ones and then start to add the bubbly colors into your Fillacello palette as you go. Because aqua and peacock and twilight are all really, or blue spruce or opaque aqua by North Star. Any of the blue colors, they're bulletproof. So I'm just working this down. It's starting to flatten out. One thing I like to do before I blow it out all the way is I sit here, turn up the flame, and I look inside and check for bubbles on the very tip. It's totally clean. There's no bubbles.
On the termination?
On the termination. I just check for them on the termination.
Could you re-terminate it?
Exactly. Re-terminate if you find bubbles. And then you terminate the bubbles. So now that I've worked down that termination, I can turn up the flame a little bit. But I'm still going to baby it and kind of work in the outer part of the flame. You don't want to burn the color. And it's just like working any other pattern onto the end of a disc. The same process. Trying to puff the pattern out a little bit, but you don't want them to get too thin. If they're thin, you'll have a lot of trouble. So this is the final sink right here.
Drop it down just like a disc.
Yep, dropping it down just like a disc, and I'm going to let it, yeah, making a disc. I'm going to let it go concave though. And I'm going to leave more than I usually would on the back side if I were making a disc. Little suck. Pulls it in a little farther. And we can get a sneak peek at the pattern right now. Here's the back side. The back side looks great.
Not great.
The front.
Dope as can be.
Yeah, and that's going to shrink down a little more too when we put it on.
That is gorgeous.
All right, so now, keeping it warm, I'm going to punny up to the back side. So there's two ways to get this onto a piece that you're working on. One way is you can just leave it like this and take your other section and attach this right onto it and then tear the front off. That's the fast way. And sometimes you get lucky, it comes out good, sometimes not. Just depends on the lineup. The other way is to punny up to the back side, and tear off this clear and cut it with scissors. I'm still trying to decide if I want to do it one way or the other. It's such a perfect round disc that I probably could do it the faster way and get away with it. At this point, we spent so much time, right? That's the thing about it, though, is that after you spend so much time, you don't want to cut corners. Really, you want to do it the real way. So, but sometimes I do them the other way, and they come out fabulous. So, but I'm going to do it the real way, so gentle punty to the back side of here, and then got to turn up my heat. So I'm kind of grazing my flame on that top rim. And let me get it a little bit warm. First thing I do is puff out to get that wall away from the pattern, because you don't want it to touch on the inside. So I'm puffing it out a bit, kind of pulling this clear off bit by bit, and it's getting thinner, creating a nice thin rim. And when you get to a certain point, you can just kind of go like that. Thins all the way and it just opens up. Make sure you hold this down when you flare it open. You kind of rotate back and forth and it spins right out. And I need a little bit hotter of a flame to get that rim to spin out the rest of the way. And it's a fast rotation to get it to come off of there. And that's good enough. I'm going to cut it off now with the shears, the snippers. So you gotta, when they're thin like this, you have to keep reheating them all the time. They cool off so quickly. And I've had them crack in half after this, after all that work. And that's no fun. So you don't have to cut right up against the color. You just want to get close. And you can go back with 6 mil and tear off the rest. And always remember to go back and reheat both sides. So I'm going to heat the back side here, heat the front side a little bit. Just, it's safer to do that. Throw that away. Nice reheat. I spent 4 hours on one and had it crack in half on me one time because I didn't reheat it often enough. And then I went to reheat it and it just went boom, right off the punny. I put it back together. I actually grabbed the pieces. It still came out, but I got lucky that time. I'm coming down to the last bit here. So now I'm going to switch punties. And see, it's already domed, which really helps a lot. Show you what I do next. There we go. If I see a thick spot, I'll just drag it off with a piece of 6mm. See where that thick edge of clear is? I'm going to pull that off of there. Yeah, I leave a very thin layer.
White?
And only do a little bit of wiping and then go back to reheating a little bit.
Ah, okay.
Because
Back out on it.
right now is a really sensitive time. These cold welded punties on them,
Yeah.
mad stress. Sometimes you stick it on too good. Okay, go back and reheat a little bit. Can't take too long. I mean, you only have a few seconds. It's so thin. And that cold weld, man, they are sensitive. A little thicker edge of clear here. All right, so look for any really thick spots. Tear them off. I'm just gonna do it now. Work this thing down. So I heat the edge and I'm just gonna kind of marve it like this. And I'm only getting that edge hot and just kind of gently pushing it. And you can go back and even it out like that.